Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. Negative self-talk, it can be so powerful and damaging to our sense of happiness. So how do we overcome it? When we're being deluged with the negative self-talk, what do? Do we let it just run its course, beat us up, and then deal with the damage afterwards? Or are there things that we can do to stop the negative self-talk and find peace and happiness in our lives, no matter what? I believe we can, and that's what we're going to explore in today's episode. One of the main things that can be tricky about negative self-talk is that it is often true. And if it's true, shouldn't we say it? Shouldn't we think it? Of course not, because it's hurtful, it's painful. And the biggest problem with negative self-talk is that it keeps us stuck. Whatever we're struggling with, we can't undo the struggle if we're telling ourselves all day long that there's something wrong with us. So what we do is we begin to change it. Let me use an example. Let's say, for example, we're overweight. We have more pounds on our body than we want. And if we look in the mirror and we say, oh, I don't like the way I look. I'm fat. I'm ugly. Or whatever we may be thinking, these aren't going to help. They actually are hurtful. And of course, hurting another person matters. It's painful, it's cruel, it's unkind. But hurting ourselves is the exact same thing. It's hurtful, it's unkind, it's cruel. So what we're going to do is try to work towards changing that. Because even though what we are hearing in our self-talk may be true, we have to ask ourselves, is it helpful? Is it making me better by saying this? Or is saying this keeping me stuck? I know it may be true, but is it helpful? Is it kind? Will it help me improve? Because we can improve upon anything in our lives. Even if we have a physical disability, like we've lost an arm because of an accident, we can't regrow that arm, but we can learn to adjust to having one less arm. Or let's say we're getting older and our body's becoming more feeble, or we're getting wrinkles. We may not be able to stop the aging process, but we can accept the aging process and grow with it gracefully. So that's really the key of turning around negative self-talk. It's saying it just doesn't help. It keeps us stuck. And I think when we really realize that, even though we may say, but it's true, Dr. Puff, I really am fill in the blank. It may be true, but it's unkind. And if we really want to change our lives, we need to stop it. We need to say, yes, this may be true, but it doesn't mean I can't change it, or even just work to accept it. And if I work towards accepting it and work towards changing it, then in many ways it isn't true, because I'm working towards doing things to improve my life one day at a time. And when we take the approach of one day at a time, we can make improvements, whether we change something or learn to live well with something. If we can't change it, then we'll find that our lives will become a beautiful adventure no matter what. So let's use some examples to illustrate my point. Obviously, there are an infinite number of examples that we could use to illustrate negative self-talk. Our lives are so often replete with it. It can be really daunting. But for a moment, take a second and think of something that you struggle with in regards to negative self-talk. I'm going to use a couple of examples of how to tackle them, but try in the back of your mind, replace the examples I use with your example, so that way you can apply it to your life. So the first thing we want to do is be aware of the negative self-talk. We can't change something unless we're aware of it. So we have to ask ourselves, well, am I, throughout the day, ever self-critical? And I know it may sound silly, but a lot of people just aren't even aware that they're self-critical. Let's use the example of weight. I think a lot of people struggle with being overweight. So they walk by a mirror and they think, ugh, you're fat. Or they see a picture that someone takes of them, or they take of themselves, and they think, ugh, you're disgusting. I mean, those are horrible thoughts to think about anyone or to ever say to anyone. So why is it good to say it to ourselves? Do you think we would motivate someone to lose weight by calling them fat and disgusting? Of course not. We would motivate someone by saying, you know, you are a beautiful soul and you're going to work on getting better. I know you are. I'm going to be there to cheer you on because I love you. And I'm going to help you get better because you can. Wouldn't that be so much better than to say, ugh, you're disgusting? I mean, think about it. I know it may sound incredibly ridiculous, but it's true. We so often throughout the day are very tempted and participate in negative self-talk. Yes, I get it. It may be true, but is it helpful? Is it kind? Is it going to help us to improve? Of course not. So we have to start with being aware that we're doing it. And then the big thing is change it. By changing it, I mean replacing it with something kind. Like a big one would be, yes, I may not like my weight, but these are the steps I'm going to do to work on it today. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to try to get out and exercise a little bit. I'm going to reach out to a friend when I'm feeling those hunger pains and say, can you help me with this? There's so many wonderful things we can do to get better, to improve. And if we focus on them instead of on the negative self-criticism, I think we'll find a much better result. And this is where most of our efforts are going to come from, ourselves. We carry our thoughts with us all day long. We're thinking, and we have to really pay attention. Are we thinking negative self-talk? And if we truly want to get better, we need to stop that, and we replace it with positive self-talk and loving self-talk. But the second thing, perhaps 10%, that we really need to pay attention to is, are we around people that are participating or encouraging or adding to our negative self-talk? If we are, we need to stop spending time with them or set some very clear boundaries with them when they behave that way. For example, if we're with a partner who criticizes perhaps the way we look or criticizes our success or criticizes something that we do that we're working on and we know we do it and we wish it was better, then we need to ask them to stop. And if they're unable to stop, then we need to consider not spending as much time with them because other people can be so cruel. We, though, spend most of our time focused on what we think because that's what's important. I mean, the world's going to be cruel, so we have to be very careful there. And I particularly think because of social media, we need to be especially careful. The world can be so cruel at times. We, of course, do not want to participate in that. And we start with that. We are very careful with how we respond or leave comments about other people. If you ever want to connect with me on social media, the main app I use is Instagram. And if you follow me or see my comments, I've never left a negative comment on another person. I would never do that. It's unkind. It's cruel. It's far better for us to say, when we are engaging with other people, we practice acts of kindness. We can say wonderful things, beautiful things, but we need to be careful with our words because they matter, and they matter to all of us. Over the years, I've worked with some very successful people, celebrities that you might know, and they've come to my office crying because they're so devastated by what people say to them on social media. Our words matter, even to people that you think it doesn't. It matters. So practicing acts of kindness is a wonderful gift we can give to others. And you know the best thing about it is, when we practice it with others, we'll do it better with ourselves. Being kind towards others will develop a kindness towards ourselves. Really, it really makes a difference. And it makes a difference towards ourselves too. Because if we practice acts of kindness, words of encouragement towards others that we may think aren't doing so well, then what will happen is when we ourselves aren't doing as well as we wish we were, we can say words of kindness. And kindness is so much more encouraging than words of cruelty. Cruelty keeps us stuck. Kindness helps us to move forward. And then one last thing. Not only do we practice acting kind towards others, we also, in our head, work on thinking kind thoughts towards others all the time. And when we don't, again, we don't criticize ourselves. We just say, oops, that wasn't a very kind thought. I want to think something beautiful about this person. And we work on that. We work on thinking kind thoughts towards others. And again, what will help us here is if we're doing this with others, guess what? When we see that photo that someone posts on social media of us and we don't like it, we can say, well, I like my smile. Or say, that was a fun day. We can focus on the kind thoughts instead of the negative ones. I know negative self-talk can be so powerful because sometimes it feels so true. But if we want to get better, we have to either work towards improving ourselves with kindness, or if we can't change something, again, like something that really can't be changed very easily, then we work towards acceptance. And acceptance is also very kind. Kindness is a beautiful way to go through life, and we have to practice it throughout the day. So in conclusion, I know sometimes there's things that we don't like about ourselves, that we're not proud of. But as long as we're working towards improving them, or if we can't change them, learning to accept who we are, then we'll find that with these acts of kindness towards ourselves and towards others, our lives will get better. And with time, we'll see that life can truly be a beautiful adventure, one day at a time, one breath at a time. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to happinesspodcast.org. And until next time, accept what is, love what is.